Orange Park Mall covers almost 47 acres. It includes 731,208 square feet of space. Just some factoids. In 2018, they paid $1.6 million in ad valorem taxes to the community. If you include the Sears parcel, Ivy Development, Corporation section, the Belt section, the mall covers 83 acres and has 1.2 million square feet. And total tax revenue is about 1.8 million. There are close to 140 tenants in the mall, and leases go for over $400 a square foot. Mall sales increased under Randy's leadership over $49 million in 2018. And food court sales alone generate over $7 million annually. Please enjoy your salads while I invite Randy Bowman, General Manager of Orange Park Mall, to say a few words, and thank you for your sponsorship.
Thanks, AJ. I picked the perfect time to be the title sponsor with this nice crowd, so thanks for coming out. We greatly appreciate it. We're thankful for the Economic Development Council. We're glad to be a part of Clay County. Since taking over a year and a half ago, I don't come from the property side of things. I come from the retail side of things. I'm kind of like a retail nerd. And so I understand what our retailers are thinking. I understand the industry, and our property needs to be 5 years ahead of the curve, and we need to stay there. And so I look at our center like it's a main street. We're building a lifestyle center. We're adding more things like escape rooms, Dave & Buster type concepts. We're looking at the property at this moment, on October 9th, our CEO is evaluating a plan that we have on the works to build an amphitheater on property, as well as a dog park / daycare center that would add extra outlets to our property and also increase revenue and obviously our sales tax. So a lot of great things happening at the property. We're 99% occupied, which is rare in our industry. That's just because we look at it differently. We're focusing on Clay County and our surrounding partners that feed in. We're making sure that we bring the missing elements to Clay, so where our customers, when they come and shop, it's not just about fashion and shoes, but they're getting to shop, play, eat is our whole focus, and we'll continue to focus and make Orange Park Mall one of the epic centers throughout the state of Florida. We're excited about our future and our plans. We've been discussing those things with AJ and more to come. As I can announce more of those, I'll be happy to, but we couldn't do what we do without your support as customers. We have 3,000 employees that work within that center amongst all retailers. So it's like a city within a city, and they thank you as well for continuing to shop the mall, supporting that, and making it one of the largest revenue centers from New Jersey down to Florida. We finished for the first time in over 10 years, highest revenue in our company portfolio last year. But again, this is from all your support that you give us here at Orange Park. So thank you for having us.
We're very close by proximity, and your educated workforce and all the booming businesses and all that in close proximity has helped the Cecil Commerce Center become what it is today. So as you'll see as we go through the presentation, you'll see the impact that Clay County has had. So with that, here's the basically outlined here in the yellow is all of the 17,000 acres that was formerly NAS Cecil Field, bounded on the north by I-10, and then in the middle here, Normandy Boulevard. Down here in the south eastern corner is the Airport Authority, and primarily what our office oversees as the OED is the 8,300 acres here, primarily on the north, and a little bit down here in the southwest quadrant. So 3% of the land mass in Duval County. We all know Duval County is a pretty big hunk of real estate, quite a bit of real estate to manage, and it's been quite a long time since we've taken ownership of it. But prior to that, it was a long road to get to where we were to actually accept the keys from the military and the federal government. So it was in 1993 that the board basically said, Cecil, you're going to be one of them that's closing through that round of GRAC closures. And then it was 3 years on that we finally put together a plan with the help of a lot of political, grassroots, civic organizations coming together for about a 2-year period, putting their heads together and kind of painting a picture of what they wanted to see at Cecil. And I'm glad a number of recommendations were rejected in that, you know, you always want to look at putting landfills and prisons out on the far end of your county, near the county line. So today I'm happy to say, you know, we're happy that those were two particular developments that never took a foothold. So with that, most of the property was turned over to the city. The airport authority down there in the southeastern quadrant, a portion went to Clay County, of which now I believe is a park, in roughly 2000. They'll spilled over into 2002, but today we've seen a lot of success since then, and look forward to more development as the years go on. So here's just a graphic depiction of the breakdown of what parties receive what, and up here in the northwest quadrant here, we basically went in my department and said, look, we're going to need to go ahead and develop out, especially the northern portion here, which was devoid of any roads or really any infrastructure. The only thing that really existed was this large set of bunkers and other secured area which supposedly housed nuclear weapons. I can't attest to that, but so at the time when we took ownership, there was really no access to get up to that part of the property. We really wanted to make sure that from an economic development standpoint, you know, this was, you know, definitely needed some infrastructure. So with that, knowing that there's a lot of wetlands on the site, we initially went in and put about 1,200 acres up here, added to our parks holding to make the trail system larger and just basically allow us to offset some of the roadways and other development that would take place in the coming years. And the airport authority has done the same. They put together a 30-year plan like we did, but a lot of planning went in the first, 8-10 years to basically just trying to lay out where we're headed and what we need to do in order to make the property successful. And as with most BRAC transfers, the federal government wants to see that at least a portion of the property goes into parkland or at least some sort of public benefit. So that's why there's such a large swath of that property was actually handed over to the Parks Department, and they've done a great job of managing that, and there's quite a bit of activity over there. So collectively, the city's invested about $180 million, and most of that has been through partnerships with the state and the federal government. Most of that collectively, JEA has put in about $60 million of that. The FDOT, $60 million alone on the outer beltway, the high-speed interchange there at the northern end. So that's definitely been a key component to our success there. And also, we did get a lot of federal grants through the first 8 to 10 years of the development. So really, most of that money was from other parties. So we're happy to see that. The airport authority as well has sunk about $150 million into their property. And, it's the Navy, when they knew they were getting rid of the property, they didn't really do much work. So on the airport side, for example, one story that my airport partners tell all the time is that when they showed up, they basically handed the airport the keys and said, here's $1 billion worth of infrastructure, hopefully you can afford it. And basically the runway lights, there was really nothing really done for almost 8 to 10 years before they turned over the keys. So they had to put a lot of money in just to get it running. And then, another funny story was that, basically as they did that, they handed them a big box of keys with a couple thousand keys in it. And, so they basically had to walk through the property, still cups of coffee on desks and paperwork as if it was just an abandoned town, to figure out what they had to do. So they had a lot of work to do on the front end, and now they're booming, and they're definitely seeing a lot of success on their property as well. So as I said, the first 8 to 10 years really was kind of laying the groundwork, permitting, dealing with the drainage infrastructure, and removing a lot of the wood-built structures. Most of these were circa 1950, 1955 buildings out there. So we went ahead and raised most of those. The only things we kept on the city side were about 21 brick structures, of which we're mostly leased out of right now. That helps us make enough revenue to cut the lawn and keep the lights on. And we knew from the front end that we wanted to make sure that we weren't at the whims of a budget on a year-to-year basis from a maintenance standpoint. So we went ahead and good foresight to basically go in and have a private property management company take the reins and do that. So we've had a great group out there for a number of years. And one thing that reminds me of that was a good decision was a couple weeks ago I got a phone call from our folks at the right-of-way division in the city, and he said, Ed, we're getting this road turned over to us that Amazon built, and this goes back to the airport authority, the first Amazon facility that was built up there a couple years ago. We got a state grant to build a road, but timing-wise, it just would take too long for the city to build it. So the state agreed to work with the city to have the company build it, and then we would take ownership of it when it was complete, about a year after it was complete. And so I said, we put that in the deal. Here it is. This is the legislation. And he said, but it's got shrubs all throughout the median. I said, okay, yeah, it's a pretty nice roadway. They put, pretty nice, and so we don't manage shrubs. And I said, in the right of way. I said, well, we're going to have to rip all that out. I said, wow, okay, that's interesting, but just shows you kind of it's city rights of way and things like that. It's from just an appearance, your curb appeal means a lot when it comes to folks. And as folks visit the property and prospects come by, I mean, they always definitely mention how there's a lot of curb appeal. So I think if we were at the whims of an annual budget from a public works standpoint, we may not be here today with the amount of success we've had. And then also the remediation, the airport has dealt with a lot more of that than we have, but collectively there is some pockets of contamination, not as bad as some other airports and other BRAC bases. But and just a sidebar, just pat on our back, we just received an award from the EPA a couple weeks ago that we're the #1 BRAC, basically success story, if you will. I think one that they wanted to kind of put us up on a pedestal to show from a remediation and just overall redevelopment standpoint. So we're happy to hear that our peers are kind of seeing all the work, and a lot of it is due to the airport authority's work as well in this arena. So in addition to the leased buildings we have with commercial entities, we also kept some of the officer housing, about 95 units there. Their 20-year lease is about to come to an end, but we're working on re-upping that, and that's another thing that helps us bring in revenue and helps us stay solvent, if you will. I mean, we definitely don't need to go and ask for general fund dollars this year. Years ago we had to, but we've been a standalone entity and we have our own fund, which has helped as well through the years. Florida Division of Forestry has an operation there as well. They help us manage the forest areas, and they also periodically do timber harvest, which brings in revenue more so on the park side and the airport side, but collectively they've been a good partner as well. So we're at about 5,500 employees now, which is close to what was there when the base was functioning. And again, I think most of that is luck, but we are very happy to see the household names that have decided to plant their flag there. And again, with the airport authority, again, just on our side, you can see the Amazon has been a great partner citywide, and now their facility out at Cecil, they've had no problems getting workforce again, thanks to the communities surrounding the area. Wayfair is about to finish their 1.1 million square foot facility, and so far they've seemed like they haven't had an issue with interest in getting employees there. GE, they're doing very well. They've got about 500 employees, and the facility there actually, they do different types of pipes and other elements that go into the natural gas business. So they're definitely doing well for sure, considering the amount of activity in that space around the country. Bridgestone, that was our first project out there, about 2008 million square foot facility, and that was really a project where we realized that, and we already knew it, but government doesn't do real estate development well. So I'll get that to it in a minute, but that was our first project out of the gate on the city side, trying to develop that, but it really taught us a bunch of lessons, and that's where we ended up where we are today, with basically having a private sector partner helping us bring activity to the park. FedEx, SAF, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and one of our newest additions is Jinko Solar. which is the world's largest solar panel manufacturing facility. They've actually just put in some new equipment. I was out there about 2 weeks ago with Congressman Rutherford and some other folks from the State Department, and it was just fascinating to see the amount of technology they have. And even according to the State Department folks, that's some of the most advanced stuff they've ever seen in a facility, a manufacturing facility. And truly, Jinko said this is pretty advanced. So it's definitely exciting to have something like that in our backyard, for sure. Hopefully they continue to grow here in the market, but it's definitely exciting. And the colleges, I mean, that's definitely another key element to attracting businesses there, having educational institutions there, not just general ed, but also aviation facilities. So they've been a great partner, willing to meet with any prospect, sit in with us. And again, they've got the space and the programs there, even a truck driving facility as well. So collectively, great partner to have. We're also closely tied with CSX, always trying to land that big fish up on our mega site, which is roughly an 800-acre site on the northern part of the property that abuts I-10. And really, it's key that we did put in industrial-grade infrastructure. JEA did that many years ago, because we've definitely got some tire kickers there, and we're hoping one day we will need to get with CSX to actually install the railroad line, which used to be there, which would connect to their main line just on the north side of I-10. Unfortunately, the Navy had to remove that when they left the property, because just for liability purposes, but that's definitely a great asset to have, not only exposure to I-10, but also having a rail spur. And then our parks partners, they great facilities out there. If you've never been out there, the Equestrian Center, the Aquatic Center, a handful of pocket parks and ball fields. Definitely a nice amenity as well to trail system there. And then our newest addition from a development standpoint on the municipal side is the 911 call center is about to open, and a new fire station. And that also, the fire station really is something that's key to economic development as well, in that manufacturing businesses, from an insurance standpoint, they want to know that they've got a facility and personnel to respond to any type of issue within minutes, of which we not only have one now on the flight line, but also this additional one, which is pretty large by city standards. So, little things like that actually make a big difference when it comes to trying to bring businesses, especially manufacturers, and even just distributors, to the park. And the 911 call center is there, and Cecil's has always served as kind of it's far from the river, far from the ocean. It's centrally located, so it always has kind of been a hub for emergency personnel through the years. So that's another partner we're glad to have on site. And again, can't state enough. I mean, Clay County definitely is part of the equation here in our success. As you look around, I mean, residential-wise, and business-wise, you folks are right there on our doorstep and help us make the case that the workforce is there, there's businesses there to help serve lunch, dinner, hotels, you name it, and the growth we're glad to see that it continues to grow in the area for sure. Okay, so getting back to the Bridgestone story, so that particular project, there was hiccups along the way, and it was in 2008, shortly after that project was in the books, that we figured that we need to go ahead and try to get someone in here that does this every day, because bringing project to city council and getting approvals from various entities and trying to negotiate land, all this stuff is very tedious and could get political. So we went ahead and took almost a year to put together this RFP with a lot of information to basically sell this property, that it's turnkey, it's ready to go. Unfortunately, when we decided to put it out on the street, the economy was crashing, but we did it anyway. So collectively, we got a few RFP responses back. One of them happened to be someone that actually was willing to pay us money, that we didn't have to pay them money, which was Hillwood Development, which is one of the largest industrial developers in the country, and very Perot family company, very well funded, had the financial wherewithal and the track record to pull something like this off. So with that, it took a while, but we struck a 25-year deal with them, and we're almost year 10, year 9 of that deal, and we're looking to hopefully at some point have at least 25 to 32 million square feet of development on the ground in the next 15, 20 years optimistically. I looked at that number this morning when I looked at this presentation. $3.2 billion is what we estimated, but 10 years ago when we did this deal, Amazon wasn't around. They weren't really pumping out widgets, and logistics and distribution was not what it is today. The facility up near the airport is almost $200 million of capital investment. The one at Cecil, is over $100 million. Back when we did this deal, Hillwood was doing distribution centers that didn't have anything in it. It was just a big box, pulling boxes in and out. So collectively, I think, that's really an estimate of which probably will go up as time goes on as we start to develop out the property, just because of the nature of the logistics and distribution industry. It's kind of interesting. So in the deal, it's pretty complex, but for the most part, there's a number of different things in there that we put in there. So Hillwood won't just come in, every year they need to be at least clearing property or building something, and they have to meet certain benchmarks. And they've already met their 10-year benchmark, which is coming up. They have an excess of 2 million square feet, so they've checked the box there. And considering it almost took us 10 years to get the Bridgestone facility up half of that, we're pretty happy. But collectively, there's a ratio in there and a profit share element, which we're now, reaping the benefits of them selling property, selling buildings, and creating just, obviously taxes for the tax roll. So collectively, it's been a great partnership, and we hope it continues. But we do still own the buildings. We continue to get the lease revenue for those, so that's another positive. And we're also doing economic development projects, so we don't compete with them. We don't get in their space from a logistics or distribution standpoint. We're primarily focused on manufacturing and getting those types of jobs to the park. So I just brought a couple slides just to kind of give you an example of, and these are just a couple photos from portions of their main park, which is in Texas, and it's Alliance, Texas. So part of the deal when we did got the contract going with the company, we said one thing that we want to make sure we do here is your Hillwood Cecil property is we put the Alliance moniker on there, and it was a little bit back and forth, but collectively they agreed to do that in that their Texas Alliance property is, brings in, I think, over $20 billion in capital and just overall just revenue to that particular Fort Worth area. And then they've got an Alliance California property, so this is kind of bookending their East Coast presence here. But this is just kind of an example of what they have going on. I mean, we were just blown away by what they were able to do, and it was many years ago, about 30 plus years ago, the Perot family basically cobbled together a series of large ranches up north of Dallas near Fort Worth, where they're saying no one wanted the property because the winds would blow from the cattle ranches, and it just was property that no one would want to develop. Well, come to find out, many years later, 20, 30 years on, they've got quite a development out there. This was their flagship property here. Was the first, the Perot family, they built the first privately built interstate highway, which was then turned over to the federal government. But from a timing perspective, they wanted to build it. So they did that, and you'll see the airport there. That's one of the first industrial parks with an airport in the country. So they really were a pace setter. And you can see the household names there. I mean, they've got those in their Rolodex, so we knew we were riding the right horse. But one other funny story was the Texas Motor Speedway here. We were out there doing a tour. We went by there, and the guide said, well, this is the largest video board in the world. And I said to myself, I was saying that literally our scoreboards in downtown Jacksonville were just being completed. And I laughed, and we all looked at each other, and we said, wait a second now, you're not only going to have the second largest, you're going to have the third largest. But I kind of said, I know they do everything big in Texas, but hopefully we knew that this one wasn't bigger. Like, how big is it? So it was just kind of a funny moment there, but I think we do trump them in that respect. But definitely, I mean, you can see just the scale of the property with that being there. That is a very large venue, and it really is small in the landscape there. And here's just another. There's many portions of the park, but this is just another one to kind of give you a sense of what we envision, Cecil becoming, at least in some respect. And just to put things in perspective, these buildings are 800 to 1 million square feet on average. So that's quite a massive amount of capital there in overall corporate presence. So here's our site plan as it exists today. Up here in the north is the mega site I mentioned, and this is really one that we're really holding out for that big manufacturing facility, major, built, couple $1 billion deal. Who knows if it'll ever come, but we really are hoping that we land that. And one thing we're lucky to get about 1.5 years ago was a state grant to build this road here. So originally we'd have to take prospects over in a helicopter, literally, because this is all preserved wetlands here. So this is basically another chunk of property we set aside as well as here to offset all the roadway and all this other infrastructure and development that you see. Again, it's a massive piece of real estate. So the roadway, which should be complete by the spring of 2020, will really help us, I think, add value to that site and allow it, from a mental standpoint, having folks drive up a roadway to the development site is much better than flying over what they say looks like a big lake out down there. So we're hoping that spurs some more activity there. And then you'll see kind of on the landscape here the different developments that we've done. And even the airport authority, they're just really going gangbusters. They're about to open up the northeast quadrant of their property here with some development. They got some state funding, so with their spaceport, I mean, it's amazing what's really happening there collectively all the way around. And even most of their companies that reside over here have a field presence are really the ones that occupy our buildings, the Boeings, the Lockheed Martins, Department of Homeland Security. So they really help keep our properties leased up as well. So good partnership there. And here's just a couple photos of some of the developments we've done. A funny story on SAFT. So this was the project we did after Bridgestone, but this just shows you just pure luck in one sense, stumbling into some of these. But SAFT, this is almost a $200 million facility, was done about 2010, but we weren't even on the radar of this company. They were looking at Michigan and some other parts of the country to do this. And this is when there was a large government stimulus in place because of the economic conditions we were dealing with. So we just got put on the list just for a visit, and have come to find out it was actually Mayor Payton's friend that he went to high school with was the marketing director for this company. And so he just literally called him up, and this was when Mayor Payton was in office, and put us on the list. And lo and behold, Jack's USA, our partnership here, just we rallied and made quite an impression, and the rest is history. So been a great addition. Even have them, Jinko. I mean, some really high tech, interesting facilities out there. Not only creating jobs and tax base, but just overall appeal of having such high tech stuff here is really international companies really helped us. But that was not a bad deal after doing the Bridgestone deal, which took a little bit of time. Here's GE Oil and Gas, Amazon. So Wayfair will be located there, clearing, and they're almost complete with their project, which will be right next door. So moving forward, I know some of our Jack's USA friends are here in the audience. I mean, we just really work with them. They're our marketing arm. They're out there beating the drum and traveling, trying to get prospects here, and they've done a great job. So we just continue that. I mean, you can't market enough, as we all know. Job fairs, it's another thing we get behind in any fashion, whether it's on property or just citywide, but that's always helpful as well, considering and to show that you're actually involved in those to help some of these employers feel comfortable that you've got their back. Strengthening our partnership with Hillwood, definitely on a daily basis, trying to make sure that they're happy and they're working hard on keeping Cecil front of mind. Keeping our buildings leased up to keep the revenue coming in, attracting retail. I mean, I think I'm still amazed that we don't have more retail there on site, but again, you folks in Clay County have really helped from that perspective, having some retail nearby as well to help kind of have that resource for sure. And then working with CSX on getting our rail spur back, in line and hopefully ready for the big whale project. And then JTA bus service, that really is key, especially with some of these distribution centers that have 1,000+ employees coming in and out at any one time. And some of those jobs, some of those employees don't necessarily have the means to have a vehicle. So mass transit is definitely something we're trying to, bus service is something we're trying to increase as well out there. So that's key to any big development like that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our road grant, trying to get our road completed, and hopefully that'll make our mega site that much more attractive. That's all I got. All right, well, thank you very much again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed, for that insightful presentation. I want to thank you all for joining us here today, and thank you for your support for economic development in Clay County. We appreciate your partnership. The main takeaways from this is economic development doesn't know boundaries. Business profits don't recognize boundaries that are in place by cities and towns and counties and state lines in order to do business with regional partners. We're regional partners with our education institutions, our malls, our prospect developers for housing, and all types of industrial concerns. So, thank you. Please watch this short video.
Clay County EDC, we are the leaders in economic development for the growth of the county for the planned expansion of the First Coast Expressway and the multiple interchanges. This is an exciting opportunity for our community. We're planning it well. We're working with the county commissioners and our industry partners. This will be a success.